All right, on this Garlic Marketing Show, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful things you can do, asking better questions. It's going to transform your life. It's going to transform how you do business. It's going to transform everything. And I've got the author of it, Elliot Connie, who wrote the book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Future. Elliot, say hi.
Hello. Thanks for
And
having me.
oh, my pleasure. And this is going to be an awesome episode because Elliot's built a multi-seven-figure business, has 150,000 email subscribers. Has been doing YouTube for a long time. And Elliot's going to tell us all of his secrets. The number one key that was important for him to get a TV reality show, the mindset that he had that was absolutely critical to building his platform, the attitude that he had that drove him to build a 150,000 person email list, and his idea of one video, one life, and how it transforms his videos and their results. All this on the Garlic Marketing Show. But don't forget, one of the best things you can do is ask questions of your clients. We will help you craft those questions, communicate with your clients, and get it all done at videocasestory.com. Make sure to go check that out. All right, let's get started.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
All right. Tell me a little bit about this evolution, how you decide to build a platform and how you built it and got it in front of a bunch of people.
Man, so for me, and I'll try to tell the condensed story because it's actually a very long story. I just wanted to be a psychotherapist. I wanted to help people overcome the psychological challenges that impact them. And when I was in graduate school, I had a very sad realization that we're not learning to help people. We're not learning to inspire people. We're not really learning to make a difference. What we're learning is how to diagnose and assess. And those weren't things I was interested in. And I found out about this kind of therapy known as solution-focused brief therapy. In one class, it was literally 2 pages of one of the books we had to read. And I got really excited because it seemed to be the way that I envisioned therapy to be, based on hope and change and all of those kind of wonderful things. And I got really on fire about it. So I opened my therapy practice and just felt 100% unsatisfied. Being someone who really wanted to help people, when I opened my therapy practice, I could only help people in my geographical location, meaning they had to be able to drive to my office. So I started writing books so I could reach more people. And then I started taking stages. But then I understood that if you can put your content online, on social media, and build an email list, and on YouTube, and build a following, then you have no bounds of the people you could reach with your message. So I started dedicating my time to building my platform, and it ended up being the best thing I had ever done. But it wasn't really a monetizable idea at the time. It was just like, I want to get my message into more hands. It just so happens that once you do that, there's a financial reward for that as well.
That's amazing. And tell me about like starting that platform, because that's, how long ago was this?
I was probably about 2015, 2016.
Okay, so it wasn't like the beginning of the internet when you could put up a blog and everyone in the world saw it.
No, no, I'm not that old.
So, tell me a little bit about getting started, because it's not easy. I mean, at first, like, you're just kind of yelling into the void, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think there's a mindset thing that most people don't understand, and they really got to wrap their mind around this when they're getting started. When you get started, and there are so many stories of people that are like, I started my podcast and now I have 47 million listeners, blah, blah, blah. And when you get started, you have to do it from a very organic place, and you have to ignore all of the metrics that I like to refer to as vanity metrics. Like, you really have to do it from your heart and because you love it. And not that you love the platform, but you got to love like the content creation part and you've got to love the idea of getting your message out into the world. So that way, when you make your first video or your first podcast or your first piece of content and 2 people see it, you don't feel discouraged. The most important thing you can do is keep putting content out online. When I started, the type of therapy that I mentioned earlier, solution focused brief therapy, it's kind of underrepresented in the field of psychotherapy, or at least it was. And I went on YouTube, and this was all the way back in 2015. I went on YouTube and I wanted to see if someone looked on YouTube to see about this approach, what would they find? And it was absolute garbage what I saw. So I just decided I'm going to post every week so I could at least make quality training content about this approach. Like, that was literally my thinking. The first few videos got a few dozen views and then ultimately a few hundred. And I mean, I did this for years and years. Now, I want people to really understand this. Every week I would put out a blog. In fact, I still do. This blog is still going on. Every week I release a blog video without fail every single week. I started that in 2015, 2016. In 2021, by that time, I built my videos that each one would get 1,000 or so views. So nothing crazy, but it had grown from the few dozen. I got an email from a woman who was a TV producer, and she said, I really like the content on your YouTube channel. And if you're willing to come to LA, I want to introduce you to some producers and see if we could make a TV show. And for the past 2 years now, I've been in development. I signed a production deal. We're now shopping it to networks. Like, it's been completely life-changing. The only thing I did to bring about that success is not quit. That was it. I read a stat recently that 90% of the people who start a podcast never make it to their 10th episode. And of the people who make it to their 10th episode, 90% of them don't make it to their 20th. So if you simply commit to making 21 episodes of a podcast or a vlog or whatever, you are already going to beat 99% of the people in your space. Like, think about that. All you have to do is just decide, I'm going to make 21 pieces of content, and you've already beaten 99% of the people that you would be competing with in your space. That was literally all I did to succeed.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But I think there's that little piece in there of loving it, and also, like, you were caring about the people that you served with this, correct? I mean, that was in the back of your mind.
Absolutely.
Like when you made these blogs and these vlogs, were you thinking about one person? Tell me about what was the mindset? What's the mindset you have now when you think about who's watching this?
Absolutely. My mindset now probably isn't that different than it was at that time. I was thinking about the clients that get served. And my mindset was, and still is, if I make a video that inspires a psychotherapist to become better at solution-focused brief therapy, and they see one client as a result of those enhanced skills and provide better service, that is one life that will be transformed because of this video. And then that one life, maybe there'll be a better husband or wife, maybe it'll be a better mother or father, maybe there'll be a better, employee, whatever. But for me, it was worth it if I made one video and it transformed one life. So to this day, when I make a piece of content, I'm still just thinking, how do I make content that will transform even one life? Because that to me is how you make a difference, one life at a time.
It's a subtle difference, I think, here, but it's a huge difference because, I think so many people go into this. I know, because this is what we do, right? We do YouTube and we coach clients, and I have to coach them on that, speaking to one person and really speaking to transform that person and really grabbing their attention, because so many people are just going to it like, I want to get as many views as possible. And they look at Mr. Beast and they look at these people, and I'm like, well, Mr. Beast, I mean, he might change he's changing the lives of people he's given gobs of cash to, but like, I don't know if my son's life is changed by watching Mr. Beast every day. But and I think it's such an important, simple, subtle, not necessarily easy mindset, but I just wanted to really highlight there. That's amazing. That's amazing. So, and you said you have a huge email list, like 120,000, correct?
150,000. Yeah.
Wow. When did you realize that you needed to have an email list? And when did you tell me about that?
Man, that was interesting too. So I told you when I started putting content on my YouTube channel around 2015, but in 2011, so let me take you back even more. I started writing books in 2009 or 10.
Okay.
And somebody read my first book and invited me to the UK, Bath, England, to give a keynote talk, which I had never done before. But I was so obsessed with getting my message out into the world, I figured say yes and then figure it out. So I go and I do the lecture, and everybody was like, man, you're such a good speaker, and you should do this more often, and you should do this by profession. And I ended up having a good friend that was a very well-known speaker in the psychotherapy field. His name was Bill. And Bill said, you need to create a speaker site. I was like, what is that? And he told me, like, you have a site for your therapy practice, you need to create a site for your speaking engagements. And make sure you put an opt-in on your speaker site. And I was like, an opt-in? I didn't even know what that was. And make sure you have an automation connected to your opt-in. I mean, he's using words that, like, they might as well have been a foreign language to me. I had no earthly idea what these words meant. And but I did what he said. Like, I hired somebody to build this website, and I said, hey, I need an opt-in and an automation. And then opt-in, I learned, was that little thing on the website where it says put in your name and your email address, and I'll send you this, cool thing, whatever it is. And it sat there from 2011 to about 2014 without me touching it. I just didn't know what I should do with it. So I go in and I log into my database, and I wanted to see over these, 3 years, how many people had opted in to receive, my newsletter that I wasn't sending. Like, I literally did nothing with this email. And I remember when I went in and looked, there were 40 people on my email list. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. There's 40. Actually, the specific number was 42. There's 42 people. And I thought, all right, I'm going to send these people like a newsletter every week. So I started sending a newsletter every week. And after a few months, I go in and look at my email list, and I've got 100 people. And I can honestly tell you, I felt famous when I had 100 people. I felt like I was literally like the most famous person because I knew I don't have 100 friends. That meant at least some of these people on my email list are only there to get my content about solution-focused brief therapy. And it felt like such an honor. It's a hard thing to describe, but it just felt like there are people here, they don't know me, they've never heard of me. The only thing they know about me is he talks a lot about solution-focused brief therapy. And that was the moment I was like, all right, I'm going to build this. I'm going to grow it. And going back to the point we were making about like YouTube channels, I think people get way too distracted by numbers. I really just wanted to share my message and impact people. And the fact that there were 100 people letting me do that, I had so much gratitude that I almost couldn't even tell. I mean, it was just an amazing feeling. So I started reading about marketing and learning how to do these things. And before I knew it, 100 turned into 400. And I remember when it crossed 1,000, I called my buddy Bill and I was like, Bill, I've got 1,000 people on my email list. And he said, don't talk to me until you have 8,000. I was like, okay. And then I remember like each incremental growth. And then now, it's 150,000 people and helps us run our 7-figure business.
That's spectacular. That's spectacular. Such a good story. And I love your gratitude for it because, most people are marketers and like, I've got 8,000 or I've only got 3,000. And you're so grateful for each of the people. And I think that transforms the content you make. It transforms how you look at it. It transforms when you sit down to write the content, doesn't it? You're excited.
That's right. It's like when you're thinking about like how much gratitude, like when people give you their attention, they're giving you the most priceless gift. Their time and attention is the most priceless thing that they own because they can't replace either of those two things. So when someone spent their time and or attention with me, I just had so much gratitude. It became a privilege. I was so inspired to make content for them. I obsessed about them and their lives and their work and how I can show up in service for them.
I love that, and that's really the mindset that we need, because you're thinking about that person, that service, not what's necessarily going to get the most clicks, but what's really going to help them. Um, and
That's right.
so so fast forward, you've built this platform, you've written books. Now you have 150,000 people on your email list. That's amazing. So tell me about getting this TV deal. How did this happen?
Well, I tell people all the time, like whenever I coach business owners and entrepreneurs, I tell them like your greatest strength is your ability to be your authentic self. And
Mhm.
when you lean into who your authentic self is, you have a tendency to be in the right place at the right time. And for me, I genuinely, like, I wasn't trying to get famous. I wasn't trying to get rich. I wasn't trying to get any of that stuff. I just wanted to make content that psychotherapists could access to get better at delivering the services to their clients. And that was truly why I started making content on YouTube. I wasn't trying to go viral. None of that. I just wanted, like, if a therapist wanted to learn how to do solution focused brief therapy, I wanted to give them resources that would help them to be able to do that. And after a few years of literally every week, not missing a single week, literally every week posting content, I had this massive library. And this woman in LA, she was the head of casting for a major network for 30 years, decides to leave that and become a psychotherapist. And when she was in graduate school, she was really interested in the kind of therapy that I do. She had a medical procedure. When she was at home recovering from this medical procedure, she decides to go on YouTube and look up the therapy that I'm known for and finds my YouTube channel and just starts binge watching all of the content that I had been putting up for all of this time and realizes, because she's got a background in television, this guy would be good on television. This guy, we could make a show about this guy. So she reaches out to me completely cold. I thought it was a spam call. I told my assistant ignore the email. Luckily, my assistant ignores me, which she never does. And she scheduled a Zoom call with me and this woman. And she said, if you're willing, I'd like to shop you around to different production companies and see if anybody would sign you. The second production company she introduced me to signed me, and we've been working on our show for about 2 years, and we're getting pretty close to picking a network for it.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. Um, and then, and so I want to get into the book, because to me, we do case stories and we interview, and I interview our clients, and we do the way we do everything is through questions. And I
Right.
think questions are so powerful, and and also understanding the questions people are asking themselves. Uh, it's everything, right? And so tell me a little bit about the book, and who's it for?
So, first of all, I'm going to tell you that I completely am with you. The most powerful thing you can do is ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
And a question is very powerful, not just because it's the only way that you learn is by having a mindset of curiosity. And people with a mindset of curiosity have a tendency to ask more questions and listen to the data that comes back from their questions. So that's number one. Number two, the really powerful thing about questions is the receiver of your questions experiences something in the way that they answer. So, for example, if I said to you, how did you become a success in business? The only way you can answer that question is to accept that you're a success in business. And you experience a like positive boost from sitting in that compliment while you're answering the question,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's how powerful questions are. So the type of therapy that I do is questions based. And over the 20 something years I've been doing this work, you watch questions transform people's lives. And me and my co-author, a guy named Adam Frower, got really obsessed with how do we take this and teach people to be better question askers of themselves.
Hmm.
You know, how do we change it so that when something bad happens, like, you know, you get fired from a job, instead of thinking, why me, which is a very useless question, what if we helped people to think, what can I do next? Or what's the opportunity in this problem? Or whatever, the kind of question that leads towards action, the kind of responses that lead towards hope and allow the person to feel better about themselves. And we probably started thinking about this, to be honest, about a decade ago. And the past couple of years, people were so interested in my work. I was like, you know, I've got this idea for a book that, you know, there's lots of books about self-help and self-talk, but I've never seen a book that really galvanized. If you can train yourself to ask useful questions, the kinds of questions that make you feel good about yourself, you're going to transform your life and have a completely different future. And it was born. It was born in that moment. And Adam and I sat down and penned the book, and luckily found somebody that was willing to publish it.
And what are, you know, what are the questions we should be asking ourselves, and when? And because, you know, I'm a big fan of habits, right? Because this sounds amazing. I'll read the book. I'm like, how can I make this a habit? And so, you know, what
Mm.
questions, what are the first things that we should be asking ourselves?
So that's such a good question, and I wish I could tell you, like, this is the question, but that's not necessarily how I want you thinking about it. The questions that are the ones we should ask ourselves are questions that lead towards action, hope, and compliments, like, that make you feel good about yourself. And let me give you a really good example of how this changed in my life. I had a really difficult background. Like, my childhood was really rough, and there wasn't a lot of financial resources around me, and life was a real struggle. And I felt bad about myself, and the way that I talked to myself and asked myself questions wasn't useful at that time. I would think, why is my life this way and their lives are that way, or why am I different from those people? And those kind of questions just don't promote change. And then one day, I had this huge transformation, and to be honest with you, I can't even tell you where it came from. But I realized these people all had financial resources, two parents in their home that were super warm, kind, and loving. And I had none of that. I couldn't afford books when I was going to school at different times, like all these struggles. But yet I was in the same college classroom they were in. So I started asking myself, how did I do that? How did I get myself into the same scenario that they got themselves into with significantly less resources? How did I become the person that would go against the odds? Like, and when you ask yourself those questions, you start viewing yourself through a lens of capability. You start viewing yourself through a lens of strength. You start viewing your struggle as your sign of strength instead of your sign of something's wrong with you. And that's the kind of way that we have to start talking to ourselves, is start viewing ourselves through a whole different lens, and that will immediately change your questions.
That's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, because it's one of the things I talk about a lot is, you know, marketing, you've got to market to yourself, right? And it's that shifting in perception. And it's a great way to shift perception, because we hear a lot about affirmations, but I
Hmm.
love this idea of questions, because affirmations you can say, but, you know, there's a great book called Curious by Todd Cashin, and he talks a lot about people that ask questions. And, you know, it's almost impossible for us not to answer a question, isn't it?
It is impossible. It is not almost impossible. It is impossible. Your brain cannot help but engage with the content that it has. So if I say, "How come you're such a jerk?" you can't help but engage in that and experience the insult of being a jerk. If I say, "How come you're so brilliant?" you can't help but engage in that and experience the consequences of being thought of as brilliant. That is just the way the brain operates.
It's and so, I mean, how do we get in the habit of asking these questions?
You know, the same way we get in habits of anything, you have to train yourself. It is something that you have to do with intention, and before you know it, it's just your norm, right? It's just like what you do. A few weeks ago, I started working out again. I'm someone who worked out many of my youth, and like most entrepreneurs, my life got super busy and hectic. And before I knew it, I wasn't working out and my health suffered. So back in June, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start working out again for the first time in like a decade, literally. And the first couple of weeks, it was really annoying. I had to drag myself to the gym and I had to talk myself into it and I had to pep myself up. But now it's just part of my routine. So you have to like train yourself by doing it with a level of intentionality before it just becomes your natural way of doing life.
Did you use questions to get yourself going to the gym more often?
100%. 100%. The most powerful questions are questions that are associated with outcomes. So, like in a marketing context, you can't market anything to anyone unless you know the outcome your target audience wants to achieve with your product or service. So if you don't know the outcome that your target audience is trying to achieve, then you can't engage in a marketing way with those people. That's how powerful outcomes are, and the only way to get to outcomes is to ask. So I started talking to myself about like, what outcome do I want to achieve? Well, I want to be healthier. I want to be more physically fit. I want to enjoy my 40s. I want to be mobile, and I want to take care of myself. So then you start asking yourself, what will I notice to let me know that I'm doing that? Well, the very first answer to that question, I literally asked myself that question. The very first answer was, I will be drinking less soda. I'm embarrassed now to admit, when you're on the road as much as me and you're living an entrepreneurial lifestyle, like I ate fast food probably 2-3 times a day. And my most common drink was a Coke Zero. So this was back in June. And I was like, the first thing I would see that would let myself know that I was moving in the right direction would be less frequent consumption of soda. And then what else would I notice? Going to the gym. And what else would I notice? More cardio. And what else would I notice? Better diet. What else would I notice? And now it's just my norm. But you've got to like put yourself in a frame of mind where you're just kind of practicing it. And for me, questions were the root of it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And so for this book, it obviously is targeted towards everyone. Who should definitely go pick up Change Your Questions, Change Your Future?
If you feel like you're stuck, life has plateaued, and I don't know, I'm living in this kind of unsatisfied, kind of nil experience, and I just don't know what to do to get myself out of it. This book was written specifically for you.
Awesome. So Change Your Questions, Change Your Future. And I'm assuming Iron Man is your favorite Avenger.
Iron Man is definitely my favorite Avenger.
Let me ask you, why is Iron Man your favorite?
Because he's the coolest. If you remember in the Avengers movie, the first Avengers movie, he said, I pay for everything and I make everything cool. And I was like, you know what? Iron Man, like the Incredible Hulk, his superhero strength is massive strength, and Thor can fly and shoot lightning, and Captain America had that serum and gave him super strength. Iron Man's superhero strength is he's smart, rich, and cool. And for me, that's the coolest thing.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I won't geek out and ask you about what you think about Dr. Doom, but that's a whole nother show.
I'm looking forward to seeing how Marvel pulls it off.
I know. I feel like it's going to be good. I love Robert Downey Jr. He was fantastic as Iron Man. It's one of my favorite movies. Oh man. So Elliot Connie, we're going to put a link to your website, elliottconnie.com. We'll put a link to everything we talked about in the show notes. We'll put a link to your blog, Elliot. Where and you're on YouTube, right? So obviously,
I'm on YouTube. Just search my name, Elliot Connie, 2 L's, 2 T's. You can find me on social media at Elliot Speaks, across all social media at Elliot Speaks.
All right. We'll make sure we'll put all that in the show notes. And I will put definitely a link to your book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Future. I can't wait to read it. I didn't get a chance before. It's coming out soon. It might be out right now. I'm definitely excited for it. Elliot, thanks again for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Bro, thank you so much.
And thank you for taking Elliot and I on our journey. This has been On Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.